Shall we do Sleeping Beauty?
Let's.
Okay, which is one of those films that raises the question of, do you judge a film because of what you know about the people who made it, or do you judge it on the basis of what's on screen? Okay, so this is a story of a young woman who appears to be funding her college studies through prostitution. And what you see during the course of the movie is that she goes to bars, does stuff in bars. Then she gets a job working in a sort of in a high class thing in which she's doing silver service, but dressed in a fetish way, in a way which reminded me very much of that stuff from Eyes Wide Shut, the Stanley Kubrick movie. And then moves into what the film's title refers to, Sleeping Beauty, in which she agrees to be drugged and therefore unconscious whilst stuff happens, and you can fill in the rest of the blanks because I'm aware that we were doing this at 7 minutes before. So it was one of those films that it stars Emily Browning, who was last seen in Sucker Punch, the Zack Snyder movie, which I didn't like at all, and I thought was really creepy and a not very good movie. This has apparently divided critics. I can understand why it's divided critics, because it comes at you brandishing this Jane Campion presents. It's presented by Jane Campion, who actually, of course, has investigated these kind of areas before, and she did that thing in The Cut, which was effectively an upmarket, straight-to-video erotic thriller with a literary source, but it had a relationship to those, to the erotic thrillers. This is written and directed by Julia Lee, and it's the question that it raises is it depicting commodified misogyny, or is it commenting on commodified misogyny, and is it fetishizing its source, or is it commenting on the fetishization of its source? I think the thing to say about it is it's well made in that it's well lit and it appears to be relatively well played, although frankly an awful lot of it clunked along in a way that reminded me of those kind of pretentious Just Jacquin films that you got from the 1970s. I mean, things like Story of O and Emmanuel, which is being one thing but kind of having pretensions towards being something else. I found a lot of it very creepy. It's meant to be very creepy, but I'm not sure that it was creepy in the way that it was meant to be. I didn't think that it was above the exploitation that it appeared to be commenting upon. In fact, I thought that sometimes the fetishization of the exploitation was extremely problematic. And it raised and you can cite Buñuel and all those things when you're talking about inspirations, but so can the people that made the sleazy, like for example Greg Dark, who made what were allegedly sleazy straight-to-video erotic thrillers, would cite Buñuel until the cows came home, and that's absolutely fine.
And what good would citing?
Well, what I'm saying is, you can make a movie that is that has a sort of creepy depiction of fetishized misogyny. And you can either read it as a commentary on that, and you can cite it in a tradition of movies that have allegedly addressed these subjects in an interesting, intelligent way, or you can say, well, actually, it's just wallowing in and enjoying stuff. The worst thing about this for me, and I've said this before, I don't like my art sleazy, and I don't like my sleaze arty. And the problem with this is that it reminded me of, to some extent, of Eyes Wide Shut, which I think is a terrible film. I genuinely think Eyes Wide Shut was a terrible film. I think it also reminded me of the Just Jacquin films, which are just an embarrassment. They're kind of, they're sort of that art porn stuff, which bothers me enormously because it's kind of dishonest about what it is. There are things in it. I mean, it is well played and well lit, and it has that kind of it's all shot in a posh country house, so obviously the some of the scenes look elegant. But I didn't like it at all. I'm sorry, I didn't, despite the fact that it's got, the Jane Campion seal of approval. And I understand.
What does that mean if it says Jane Campion presents?
I think she had a production role in, but it's the publicity says, I had the poster here, says Jane Campion presents. I can't find it now, but it was, it's basically, it's in the same way as Guillermo del Toro presents,
Right, so it's a sort of hands-off producer role, is it?
Well, she may have been a more hands-on producer role than that, but it certainly comes at you as Jane Campion presents in a way, I think, to kind of attempt to, here we go. So it says, Jane Campion presents Sleeping Beauty, a Julia Lee film with Emily Browning and Rachel Blake. And I didn't like it at all.